Okay, 7 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. We have quorum. First order of business is going to be approve the March 11th meeting minutes, which I just handed out.
Will I make a motion to approve them?
Who did? Sorry. Okay, is there a second?
I will second.
Okay. Okay. Frank?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Yeah. Shane?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, so tonight we have a few guests. We have Steve Mayo, we have Karen Burke, Joe Bertrand. I also see two others, Lori Wheeler and Lilia Martin, who just must be observing. So Joe is our liaison with FinCom, Finance Committee. Steve Mayo, as you may know, is our fearless town administrator. Karen Burke is your director of the COA, is that correct? Our senior center, Karen? Okay. So Karen, we received your request. So why don't we start with you? If you want to just talk about the request for the van, I can pull up the information and share it on the screen if you'd like, or if you just want to, you tell me what you would prefer.
I'm on the screen is good, or I can just talk to it as well. It's a fairly simple, I have a rendering of the van that we're requesting, and I can go into details as to what the main reason for the request is.
Okay.
Currently, transportation is one of the key essential services that we provide at with the Council on Aging. We take people to medical appointments, we take people grocery shopping, we take people here to the senior center events, and then just normal day-to-day things like, hair appointments, nail appointments, things like that help keep the seniors active members of the community. So currently we have a small bus or a van that can transport 8 people in one wheelchair. It has a lift at the back side that we can use to get wheelchairs on and off. And we also have a lot of people that utilize their walkers using the lift instead of trying to navigate the stairs. Our second vehicle is a Ford Flex, so that can bring some people back and forth. It's not as ideal for people who really have mobility restrictions and need a walker, or for people who are in a wheelchair. We just can't do that. So when we have to do anything with the van, we have to really think about strategically planning when we can bring it in for service, because we wouldn't want to take away our ability to bring people who need that lift to get into the transportation. So it really can present a challenge. We've had times in the past year where we've had to cancel one of our regular participants, for example, from coming to an exercise class because we had another participant who really needed to get to a medical appointment, and we had to outweigh which one we needed to do as a higher priority. So we would like to get a second handicapped accessible vehicle so that we can continue to provide medical transportation without concern of that conflicting with the need to bring people to essential services like grocery shopping. We go to Market Basket twice a week, transporting roughly 600 trips or 600 people to Market Basket annually. And fiscal year 2024, for example, we brought about 2,400 people on different trips. That's 150 unduplicated people. So it's a service that's heavily utilized. So we would love to have the ability to have 2 different vehicles in order to bring people who are mobility impaired and need a walker or a wheelchair. And we've been looking at different types of vehicles, whether we wanted to try and get another bus, whether we wanted to do a minivan or just a standard van. And after lots and lots of research, we've decided the best option that can maximize the riders and minimize for you to be also an economical choice is a full-size van.
Karen, I'm going to put you on hold for a second. There's something going on here at the fire station. I don't know if we're evacuating or if that's just the sound of a fire call. No, it's a fire call. Sorry. They're just 317 Main Street. I don't know if you can hear it on your end, but
That's fun.
Okay, I think we got through that one. Okay, sorry. Yeah,
Oh, no worries. Thank you. So the van we've selected that we think would be the most beneficial to us allows for has a lift in the back of the van so that you could bring a wheelchair on, or you could also have people who are using walkers get onto the lift, lifts them up, and then there are 2 seats that fold down right in the back. So it's very easy for them to get into a seat without having to pivot and use the stairs and do other things.
okay, I was just gonna bring up, you had sent a diagram of the van.
Yes, that's exactly the one. And what we like about this choice is that really it actually enables us to bring almost as many as our small bus does. It's an all-wheel drive vehicle, so that can help us in the snow when we have to get people still to medical appointments. And it just seems like a good choice for all around use for us so that we can continue to offer this service without fear. Every time I bring the van for repairs, for example, I fear like, oh no, what if it needs to go in for a week? We'd have to cancel a lot of riders. In addition to the normal, just needing it for the mobility impaired, it will give us more capabilities too as the need grows. Our market basket numbers, for example, have expanded. We're going to add a 3rd day because right now each of our 2 market basket trips that we have are maxed out.
Oh, sorry. We're like surrounded by speakers of the fire department here. Okay, do you want me to pull up anything else in this from the van company?
No, so this one, National Van, they would build that. I worked with them to build to the exact specifications that we would want. And I've gotten quotes from 3 different companies on similar vans. And this one was projected at $78,707. And this was actually the cheapest of all of the quotes. They ranged from this up into the 90s. But they worked really well with me, making exactly what we wanted and the exact specifications that we would want to make it the most useful for our riders.
Okay.
We work very closely with our drivers to see what their thoughts on it too, because we went back and forth about what we really wanted and did we need the second handicap vehicle. We looked at how many wheelchair riders we bring. But the other thing we really utilize it for are people who use our rollators or who really need the walker a lot, because it is hard to get in and out of the car and you can't go up the steps. So it does there's a whole group of riders that are in walkers that don't even need the wheelchair, but they need the lift to safely get on and off of the vehicle.
Okay. Do we have any questions from anyone?
Would this require another,
Speak up. Is that it?
would this require another staff person?
No, we have 3 regular drivers and we have 2 substitute drivers. So this, and they all will be qualified to drive the vehicle.
And then could you tell us about the current fleet?
So currently we have a small bus and we have a Ford Flex. So the small bus can carry 1 wheelchair and it can carry 8 passengers. And then the Ford Flex safely 2 to 3 people.
And I think, one has 80,000 miles, is that correct? And what was the other one?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'd have to get back to you on the mileage. I can run out and get it. It's on my sheets in the front.
No worries. I mean, are they newer? Are they older? Like, do you know what years they are?
The bus, I believe, is 5 to 6 years. I'd have to look, and the Ford Flex is older than that. It's one of the older ones in the fleet. I apologize. I'd have to get you the year.
No worries.
And we would like this to be in addition to the fleet, not to replace one.
I apologize for coming in late. You may have already covered this, but could you explain why this request is coming now instead of a few months back?
Did you hear that, Karen?
No, I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
Sorry, the question was, is there a reason why we got the request now and not like several weeks back when our process started? Like, was it waiting, did this need just come to into your desk, or is this something you've been working on and just, yeah?
It's something I've been working on. I've been waiting to get different quotes and working with different vendors to see what they could build for us.
Aaron, do you have an estimate of the turnaround time of the van from when you order it to when you receive it?
It varied depending on the company. The quote is good for 30 days. I would have to reach back out to the sales coordinator that put the pitch together for me to see the turnaround time. The vans, I believe, were not a large turnaround time versus the buses were over a year.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, Karen. Oh, Steve, you have something? Oh, no, you just itching your nose. Okay.
Oh, just scratching.
Sorry. Okay, Karen, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next order, I'd like to just run through, so I think for Joe and Bertrand, it's active fire night tonight, it seems. You guys hear that? Joe Bertrand, you just want us to run through the whole list, and Steve, same question to you, just run from the top and kind of show you where we're at? Is that the
Yeah,
best?
that works for me. By the way, Bill, Lori Wheeler is also on the liaison from the finance committee to this.
Oh,
committee.
thanks. Hi, Lori. That's right. I remember Lori last year. We were in Steve's office, I think. Okay. So Joe Conway, you should be able to share the list. And just for those not in the committee, we are basically at almost final list. We do have some further deliberations to do tonight. So we'll go through the list, but there's still a few items that are going to need some discussion. And then we have obviously this added Council of Aging request. So we're going to discuss that too, but we'll show you where we're at in all other regards.
Can you all see it?
Great. I'm gonna get a screen this big in my house. Joe, do you want to work through it?
Sure. Is that big enough for you? You need me to go bigger?
We have it on the projector, so it looks good on yeah, it looks good.
All right. If it's not, just holler out. So I guess I'll just start at the top and work the whole way through the bottom and give like the 50-cent tour of kind of what the committee's been doing to this point. Let's see. So at the top of it is all the prior year leases. This is stuff that was approved in prior years that we still have payments for. Some for the schools, some for my group at DPW. We can get into that in a little bit. In fleet, we have 2 large dump trucks for DPW, another small pickup truck for us. This one right here is so you're like mid-grade dump truck. 2 more other vehicles that have aged out just by condition and age. Still left in the plan is a command car for the fire department. 3 new patrol cars for the police department, which the chief had presented was 2 cruisers and an additional K9 vehicle. And then in the list presently is the senior van that Karen just spoke about a couple seconds ago. Dropping down into the building section at the library, Catherine McDonald presented, basically she has a plan to go through all of her HVAC stuff on her roof. So the committee has in the chiller to be upgraded and one of 4 rooftops that she has identified as needing replacement. The town hall, we have money in here from my group at DPW for a replacement of the shingled roof. Moving into the senior center, there's some money for bottle fillers and the rubber flat roof that needs to get replaced. At the Civic Center, at the ground level, there's grates on the windows. This appropriation that's in the plan now, should it be voted for, would be used to replace those. Some of them are just in a condition where they can't be repaired or welded on and actually falling off the building. The committee sought a presentation to replace 2 doors at the Nahant Street DPW garage, a floor abatement at the Yule. This is for 9x9 tiles with asbestos in them. We've been chipping away at those to get them out of there because they're on active floors. You get scraped up and walked on and things like that.
The garage doors are North Ave, not Nahant.
Oh, sorry, did I say Nahant?
But you're probably thinking it, yep.
Alertness test, Phil, you passed with flying colors. Let's see, the Galvin, there's a hot water heater that needs to be replaced. And they were looking for some bottle fillers in that building. One change for the committee that is different from the last time that we talked. The Doyle School with the renovation of the kitchen that happened, found the electrical supply to the building isn't beefy enough to support the need. This is actually something that, going back through it, they had partially funded the previous year, but it wasn't enough for the project to get done. So this dropped to $10,000. So what this would be is the difference between what the shortfall was and the 10,000 that will be needed to finish that. As luck would have it, when that happened, we also found out that the hot water heater at the Woodville is starting to advance in its deterioration. And if I'm being candid, it's probably getting close to being on borrowed time. So we have inserted that for $30,000 to be filled in the place of the credit that happened on the account above it. And then there was a note from my group for townwide ADA improvements. What this will be, we know we have a ramp that we need to cut in, or we would like to cut in at the senior center and do some access into that. There's also some miscellaneous work that needs to happen should the elevator get funded, as far as egress routes and enhancements in signage. The next priority down from that, there at the Civic Center in the basement and the upper floors, there's some threshold barriers and some narrow door accesses that we have to look through. Essentially, what this will do is, if it gets funded, the town engineer, who's the ADA coordinator, will work with the commission to triage some of that and prioritize what they'd like to see done and accomplish that. Oh, sorry about that. FPC, typically forestry, parks, cemeteries. This is kind of a catch-all for everything outside. At Maple Way Playground, we have something marked that we want to talk about as far as baseball field work. And then the school department presented for the play area to be completed at the Walton, which would include grass and fencing. Miscellaneous is just another catch-all. So the committee has $8,000 in there that recreation asked for the Civic Center. The school's looking to replace their two-way radio system at $125,000. My group at Public Works is looking for some money to rebuild 2 snowplows and 2 sanders. Those trucks that I had mentioned earlier, typically we would order them with new plows and sanders on them, but the ones that they would be replacing are in decent enough shape to actually be able to reuse them. We just need to rebuild them. So that saved us about $140,000 by taking this route. Also in DPW, our buildings group is looking for another snow machine. What this really is a sidewalk snow blower that's rugged enough to be out in the street. They take this in a trailer when it snows out from all the different buildings that we clear in town. So Town Hall, the Civic Center, 9/11, Senior Center, you name it. So this thing travels all over the place and gets used quite a bit when winter decides to show up. My group also asked to see if we could get a traffic sign printer. We used to do this for a period of time. The methodology that we had to it is outdated. It didn't print or make compliant signs. This would get us up to speed there. The benefit to this is, instead of spending a couple $100s for a street sign, we could take a faded one or one that is relatively straight and print it for somewhere around $6 versus $200 to order it. The problem we have with ordering the signs is that you can't get it without, you can't send a blank back and have it reprinted. You have to buy the blank. So the aluminum is getting expensive. So this will let our staff keep up with that. And then should anything come down from anybody else, as long as Jen McDonald can make us a file fit to the size, we could do this all inside. You'll see in a minute that the enterprises are looking to replace their second backhoe. This line here for $25,000 for a backhoe rebuild. The Parks Department right now has a 1995 backhoe where the operator section, the cab is rotted off the frame and it cannot be repaired. It has to get put out to pasture. With the Water Division replacing their second machine for 25 grand, we can go through the machine that they presently have and rebuild that, paint it up and get it into service. We could get probably another 15 to 20 years out of that. The fire department asked for some onboard vehicle computers for some of the work that they're doing related to dispatch and reporting. And then there's $5,000 in here for a grant match that the chief had presented a few times ago. In the IT section, this is another one that changed for the committee from the last time. This is essentially a camera system upgrade town-wide. I learned Friday that the IT department here could actually get us dealer pricing versus some of the quotes that we've seen before. So this was lowered to accommodate that. And the enterprises function similar to the tax levy, although they're their own little world. We'll start with sewer. I'll save a couple of leases for prior years. The big one in there, we purchased a vac truck a few years ago that we're still paying for to be able to use there. Our crew is looking for a pavement saw to saw cut some of the trench work they did. The 50% means that half of the price for this will be paid for sewer, half will be paid for water. The sewer division also has cameras inside and outside of all their pumping stations. So this is something that we were going to include in the total replacement that was lowered through IT. And then annually, we throw a line item in for something we call system improvements. Generally, what this is a security blanket for us. If we're doing interior camera investigation where we find something out there in our sewer system that has to be dug up and fixed, we can have the ability to do that. This will also pay for pumps or different things like that, depending on what the course of the year throws at us. The total for this is $358,000 that we're looking for this year. Then more of the same on water, a little bit of prior year leases here for vehicles. We're looking to get that second backhoe that I talked about. That would be financed over a 3-year period at $365,000 payments. The second piece to that pavement saw, and then the water division portion of the camera upgrade. The group down at Broadway is also looking to buy some hydrants. So what this $45,000 would be is to stock them. So at any time, we have between 6 and 8 of them in stock on the shelf, ready to go at any time. You know, whether they get hit or whether we're doing a project where we want to upgrade them before we do some paving. This allows us to be able to react quickly and not have to wait on anybody and deal with any supply chain issues. And then very similar to the sewer system improvements, this is something we've done annually in water. We're asking for $75,000. Generally, what this will turn into is gated intersections out in the town. We find one that might fail through the course of business. This gives us the ability to be able to make repairs and capital upgrades as we go. And the total there is $307,000. So I know I went quick, Phil, but
You want to go over the lease schedule and do the divisions leases fall into the lease schedule, or are those separate from the rest of the leases?
no, the water is separate. So any of the first batch that I talked about is only tax, and then like this line here that I have highlighted and this line here that I have highlighted are totally independent. They're funded out of the enterprises on their own. You'll see that in this next one. So just to lay out, this is the existing debt schedule that we have with some of the prior commitments here. So you'll see this year, the lease number is $372,000. Should we do nothing, that number next year would drop to just below $250,000, and so on and so forth. Should we add in everything on the tax side that's proposed, you'll see the lease schedule start to drop a little bit. It'll drop down to $363,000 next year, and then in fiscal 28, it'll start declining a little bit more rapidly. We don't have anything on the books beyond 2030. Same thing, smaller size on the water end. So blue is the water, green is the sewer. So you see right now in water, our total is $103,000. Because we're adding another backhoe into this, we're going to go up a little bit next year. And then in sewer, same thing. We have a dump truck, our vac truck, that'll carry on to about 2029. So those are funded, like I said, out of those two pockets of money through the rate system. And everything on the top here is all your tax levy stuff.
Thanks, Joe.
Yep.
So, for Steve, Joe, or Lori, do you have any questions on any of these?
As I recall, Steve, you may chip in as well. The tax levy forecast budget was like 2.2. Is that right, Steve?
I don't think it was quite that high.
Oh, no.
We were shooting for 2,153,000.
Exactly, 215.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well, you're 40,000 off.
Last week, before the changes and before the van got added, we were at that, I think we adjusted the bottle fillers, I think.
Yeah.
Correct.
Was one way to get to that budget and give them something. So you'll see some requests where they, like for the bottle, they asked for 20 and we have 7,500. And that was us trying to get them something, but fall within that budget.
And then the window grates was another one, Phil.
The window grates at the Civic, I think it was like 30 and we approved like 23. So those are things we still need to discuss tonight before taking our final vote. We have to talk about this van and then do one final look through some of our items we adjusted last week and just move to finalize it.
can I ask a question, Phil?
Please do.
Sure, so the 2,067,000 that's there now, Joe Conway, because I did not run a tape on this, as I've known to do. Did that include the van?
Yes, it
Okay.
includes everything. Let me just save this so I can run the formula on it and make sure, but
Right.
that included everything.
It did not include the potential at Maple Way.
That's the only thing that's not included in
Right,
this. now.
okay, so included all the numbers that were in there, all right.
So that included,
Yeah, I have it including the van.
Yeah.
so
You ended
yeah,
at
Steve,
80,000.
everything from the prior year leases, the van, everything in column E that I shrunk down. The whole way through the tax levy with the exception of the Maple Way stuff that you
Okay.
mentioned.
All right. That's what I thought, but I didn't run a tape.
That's what you got me for, right?
That's right. Well, I run it anyway.
I do too.
And Joe, I know you put in there like 50,000 for ADA improvements. I know last year we added more at the
Yes.
end. So one little quick question, knowing the question I have is regarding a ramp at the senior center. Where is that going to be located?
So they've been talking on the west, let's see, if you're staring at the front of the building, what would you call that? To the
On the
east,
right side?
no, to the left, to the east side.
Okay.
I still have to have the engineers go out there and take a look at the grades to make sure that we can make
Yeah.
it completely work. They think they can from the desktop. But
Right.
that was something that we got asked about. Someone unfortunately tripped over there not too long ago, so.
As you know, that's on the National Register of Historic Places, so make sure you contact the Historic Commission, please.
Absolutely, in the windows at the Civic
Yeah,
Center.
don't even talk to me about the windows, okay?
Oh, Civic Center, Joe, new ones, new wooden ones soon.
I don't care about the Civic Center.
Phil,
All
on the Maple Way Playground,
Yeah, what's the story there, Phil?
so
Well, it came through Steve's office. So
Yeah.
Steve, do you want to start?
So I do like your new system of evaluating things. T1, T2, and then there's TA. So I guess that was me, which I kind of liked. So anyways, I was approached by girls softball, really about, starting a program to give a little bit of, I'm going to call it parity to Maple Way, which is our main youth softball field. They don't have a batting cage at all, at all. And they don't have any fencing around. You'll know that if you've been down to, what is the field now? Not JJ Round, but Nacella. There's fencing, and that's mainly Little League that plays there. And, the kids love having the fencing because they can hit it out or hit it to the fence. They really are looking to, in the future, make Maple Way kind of more of a primary field where they could even host tournaments at some point. This is a small step. I think we can do the first phase of this, I think for 50,000, Joe?
Yeah, so not to step on your toes, but so
Oh, go ahead.
essentially I confirmed what we had talked about last time for the group. So $50,000 will get you the front field closest to the tennis courts, let's say, a complete outfield fencing, and then either some type of warm-up area for pitching with a backstop or a set of bleachers. We would have to work with the softball folks to figure out exactly what they're looking for completely, but $50,000 should cover that.
So Steve, some of the conversation in reverse order was a huge concern over parking at the Maple Way being a bigger town concern. If we're going to expand the use of Maple Way, there's already a lack of parking in its current configuration. And so there was a concern brought up late. There was also discussion about whether or not capital planning committee should be funding sports association, because we're not funding soccer or the footballs. You know, they're paying, you know, those organizations pay for their nets, like for soccer, whereas, you know, softball's looking for batting cage. So are we opening up a door where we would be approving expenditure to the softball association and thereby aggravating all these other sports in town that are fundraising and paying for their own fields or lining? So is that really?
Well, I don't think fencing and a physical upgrade like a safe pitching area or a batting cage, you know, that to me is physical plant. It's not. I don't see the exact comparison with Little League and things like that. We pay for the fencing at Little League.
Not Little Leagues. They're talking like the soccer association. You know, we like they have soccer nets that the association pays for themselves. So
yeah, but the nets are mobile. They move in and out. This is a permanent structure.
that's fine. So I'm just giving you our discussion.
No, I understand. Yep.
And whether or not more capital improvements to the field and the parking made more sense for request rather than equipment, you know, or practice equipment, like what because originally this came in as a bathroom upgrade, in which we didn't understand. Right. There is already fencing in the outfield between the two fields. There's fencing that exists, and so we never really quite got a map of where this new fencing, what's wrong with the current fencing. So there are a lot of questions, and I'll let anyone else on the committee speak. I may be missing. Is there anything else that we discussed that I didn't mention?
Yeah, no, I think you covered it. I think it was just some of the detail, right? So just 100,000 seemed like a round number. We just kind of wanted to see the detail as far as how we got to that and what was included in there.
Yeah, so.
Bill, I can speak to the fencing. So Dennis was explaining to me this morning. So I guess the way that the fence is set up there now, the top rail, for lack of a better term, is essentially cable. So it's a little on the weak side to begin with. So it isn't something, you know, I can imagine if you're aggressively playing in the outfield and you bump into it, you know, you're more inclined to rip the thing apart potentially than, you know.
Yeah,
it has a yellow.
It has a yellow. For the 5 years I've been sitting in the Maple Way getting eaten by mosquitoes, I can attest that and this is not the great players, but I've not seen many people ever run into that fence. And the fence does have a yellow protective, similar to the one at the Burnett Field. There's like a yellow foam or some sort of something that goes all along the top of the fence that's on. So that's why there was some questions about exactly what this money was being asked for. And then we had other concerns about whether, like I said, are we buying equipment that really should be funded by the organization rather than the town. So that's sort of how we ended up here. And then we had a budget. And so when we were cutting, you know, we were at, I think we had like $1 million to cut at the start of last meeting. So we got through, and this was one of the ones that was still on there up until the last meeting, and it got cut because of the other expenditures that are on this list. So that's how we ended up here. So Steve, it sounds like you're definitely championing that some money be given. So what specifically out of this? The fencing and a batting cage or the bleacher? Like, do we know that is an acceptable capital planning committee expenditure? We're not going to open the door to these other sports asking why we're funding softball and not soccer, football, baseball, what other organizations are out in the town? Like that's the concern. Like, are we treating them differently?
How about if we take out the batting cage and we can have, fencing in the bleachers, which seem to be more of a capital expenditure. Batting cage,
Presentation we were given did not have any sort of breakdown on cost of a batting cage or bleachers. I think it specifically showed the reconstruction of the second field to make it a more usable field, which we all agreed 100,000 wasn't close. And so that it's just tough with the information presented on what exactly the money is going towards and how much these things and what priorities there were. So,
So Phil, 50 would do the outfield fencing, a batting cage, or a set of bleachers, depending on what consensus is between Dennis and my side, and softball. And then with that, what we would probably end up doing too, is in where the present dugouts are now. I guess they get kind of muddy when it rains out. So they looked at those, and we think we can actually resurface them. Probably pave them, depending on if that's going to be acceptable for the kids to be walking on and whatnot. But so $50,000, that would be the three big ones that you'd be able to cover with that.
Yeah, we did talk about grading. That is definitely a problem at Maple Lake for sure, right? So when there's a lot of rain, like now, I haven't seen it today, but I'm sure it's completely flooded and it's not graded correctly. So that I can attest to, like Phil being there over the years.
They don't have a solution for the mosquitoes, though.
I will say, in talking to the softball group, I would say that the batting cage and fencing were priorities over bleachers.
yeah, their top needs was pitching, hitting tunnel, new
Yeah.
fence, and then begin exploration of overhaul of M2 were the top needs.
The overhaul is going to be a big deal at some point. We all know that.
Yeah, that's 6 figures easy,
Yeah.
if not more.
Any other questions or comments on any of the line items?
Joe, so the reason that we're under despite adding the van is that you took off the 150 that we had put in for the Dole Bear.
Yes. Yep.
So what's going on with that we're still not worried about the 80,000 that we put in at the library for the same kind of equipment?
So the number that I got for this one was $450,000 to replace it. If you remember last time, I said that the unit that's up there, they don't make anymore. So we'd have to essentially retrofit one to get in the same spot. That number is just way too high for this list. So I do have a couple of shots through Green Communities to be able to get that and maybe pay for it through a grant. But unfortunately, I need a little bit more time to get a little deeper on it to make sure there isn't any other way that I could turn over something else and actually get that cheaper. It just became a cost thing, If it was 150, even a little bit more than that, and I had to scrape away to figure out how to do it, that would have been one thing. But where it was almost 2.5 times the amount of what we thought originally or what we were told originally, that kind of changed the game on that. So that coming out put a big dent in the total from last time. Then a couple of the other little ancillary savings essentially got you to where you got.
Okay, but so the library, then those numbers are still reasonable.
Yes, sorry, I missed that. Those numbers are driven off of quotations that they were able to secure. So those are hard and finite. A little bit smaller than the beast that's going to go on top of one of the schools, but yeah, those are legit.
Do you know what the plan's gonna be for the Dole Bear? Because was that Green Communities pay for both? Because they're gonna be, so it was presented that, one was worse than the other, and that's why we looked at the 80 ton.
Yep.
But they're both in pretty rough shape or they're aged, original to the building, right?
Yeah, so you're gonna have the same thing happening here, probably at the Woodville, and vice versa. The units are just getting to that 20-25 year age period where, they're starting to get a little bit tired, and you should think about, depreciating them out and replacing them. Green Communities covers, I think, up to $250,000. So if I could get a better number, somewhere else, some other way on the 80-ton, we can do it, awesome. If I get a pivot and do the 60-ton and make an application for that and then come back next year, whether it be a warrant article or, through this process, just to see how it shakes out for the bigger one, so be it. But we'll be putting in applications for those for sure.
Yeah, there's just considerable HVAC work in this town. And there's no other, like, our ARPA is done, right? Like that's something that's all closed. So there's no way to get any HVAC money from there. It's
Right.
just a considerable town expense that's gonna be continue to come up. We can't, we're punting it off the list because of this number, but it's not getting any younger. So, yeah, we gotta figure out a plan for, all of this, not just the Dolbear, but all the HVACs. These are gonna add up to be considerable amounts.
We were able, so through if you remember the term CARES, when that first came out, Tom Walsh, our emergency management director, was fantastic. We did more HVAC work in the first year there through that program when COVID started than I think that, we've done in a long time. So we're in decent shape. I would be naive to say that we're in fantastic shape, but I'm an optimist, so I'm not going to say we're in poor shape either.
Yeah, okay. We discussed, we discussed just while we have Steve and Joe and Lori, like we did discuss the Yule School a lot, like about the future use of that, what the current arrangement was, because Yule's been coming up for at least the last 3 or 4 years with the old, I think it's the oldest boiler in town, oil fired, floor abatements. It is leased out to a school organization. I think it's a SEAM collaborative, maybe. We approved to continue the floor abatement, but we assume the intention is to keep the school as its current use, rent it out to some other organization. But per the lease, which I did get my hands on from the school department, the town is responsible for, structural and mechanical upkeep. So we can't keep on kicking these requests because it's probably, well, you said it's the oldest boiler in town, so it is. So just we approved 10,000, but that's something I think we need to start seriously looking at next year. And one of those things, we didn't want to pump money into it and then find out like, oh no, the town's gonna repurpose it in some way, and then so. But we don't really know if that's been a discussion anywhere or if it has been a discussion that anyone would know anything different tonight to share with us. But that's why you'll notice that there are not many approvals in the Yule School again this year.
I know nothing new on Yule. I will say that if population and school-age children continue to increase or increase at a rapid level, that's one spot we'd have to look at, I think.
Yep. Anything else?
Was there, there's no way to, because there's always pressure to get rid of oil or any kind of fossil fuel. We talked about that place not having a gas hookup, is that correct?
We need to bring gas up the street into it. Yep.
So that would be a major endeavor, wouldn't it?
No, I mean, I'm not going to say no, but between the capabilities of our staff here and gas and light, so long as there was no supply issue on their end that they would need to not hook that up. I mean, I would offer my group to dig the trenches and they could lay the pipe. It doesn't really matter at one point, what goes in the hole. It's pipe, you just bed it and compact it and go from there. So if that was the case, I would volunteer that for sure.
The general question is, does the revenue from the lease cover the maintenance costs for that building? Does it wash out?
I think the revenue of the lease is around 100,000 a year. Goes into the general fund.
I would, that more than covers at least the level of commitment that DPW has in there. You know, we're there, but we're not there all the time. It's not a pain point for us or anything like that from a maintenance perspective, so.
And Wakefield students also go there. So Wakefield shares that. We have students there, so it's, you know, it's not just out of town kids.
But what's the population,
That I don't know.
student population?
Okay,
So Phil,
Yeah.
it seems as though, the U school is kind of a discussion for another time.
yeah,
Would you, mind going to the Civic Center again? We took some money out for the windows and.
no, Civic Center, yeah, we have
Notice
the,
Joe Bertrand is off the screen, so we can talk about this now.
all right, where's Joe?
Oh,
Oh,
Joe's here.
Oh, yes.
Bertrand,
Oh.
Mr. Bertrand.
yeah, he's here.
The Civic Center. let's see.
Yeah, so Civic Center asked for basement window grates, windows, and the gym divider replacement. So gym divider replacement, we agreed
Right.
could probably be sewed or duct taped. Windows,
Almost nearly fully funding the window.
remind me what the GC is. It's a grant, right? Green Communities?
Green community.
Something. So I think the consensus during the conversation was to handle it the way the committee has handled a lot of other buildings, to phase it. So start with one tier of the building, which would be the ground level basement, and then come back the subsequent year for the next floor and the second floor and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and the window grates, again, we didn't fully, you know, it'd be great to fully fund them to get them all done at the same time. We did the 23 just to make the math work at the last meeting, but in reality,
Sure.
I think I would love to see that back at 30 to get all the grates done. It wouldn't make much sense at this point to cut it.
I agree.
And those are locked grates, correct? Because those aren't windows. Windows aren't egress in any way in the basement, are they?
No, I don't believe so. So what the plan would be to do is mimic what we did interior of the gym. So we put the window grates on, but we installed them on beefed up piano hinges so that you could unlock them and open them and access the window if you had to. You didn't have to deal with, you know, taking out masonry lags and whatnot. So there'd be a miniature version in, you know, a greater number than basically exactly what's inside.
Okay. That help, Dan?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
I guess I'd make the proposal then that we restore the full funding to the window grates, and we still have a little bit of room, so we can put the windows in too.
30?
Yep.
Up that to 30?
Up that to
Folks, does
30,
that sound
yes.
okay?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I'm fine
And
with
then the
that.
grates. back to
So
the-
that puts you here.
How we doing? What's that number?
Yeah.
2074.
Um,
I mean, the other thing we cut was the water fillers. I don't know, do we want to bring those back up as well, or are we happy with?
Yeah, let's talk, let's talk the senior van. Are we okay keeping that in?
Yeah. I think there's a high demand for transporting seniors. I mean, she's talking about taking people shopping and stuff, and in tight spots, she has to cancel or reprioritize based on a medical issue.
Yeah.
I'd say, yeah, I'd like to keep it in.
Yeah, it sounds like the current status is detrimental to people who need those services, so
Mhm.
that makes sense.
That's expanding every year more and more. That service. It's very important.
Yeah.
I have no problem with the service. I have no problem with adding with it. I don't necessarily like that it showed up this quote late,
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
I
process,
agree. That's not helpful.
but, you know, I guess we were saved by Joe Conway finding out that the HVAC for the Dole Bear was an actual no-go.
right,
To like slot
Yeah.
that in.
yeah, right.
So.
To be fair to Karen has been working on that. I tried to spare you some of that heartache from my end, but dealing with upfitters, especially for specialty stuff like this, can be a little annoying because of the time it takes and the amount of rounds you have to go back and forth. So from my perspective, I can sympathize with her, you know, that it took her
Yeah.
like almost to get to the point where they have to badger them to, you know, get you what you want.
I wouldn't describe it as incompetent or malicious. I just like don't want to be like,
Totally understand.
I want to make it clear that in the future, somebody who is maybe being more malicious, that like, oh, well, a last minute request, I can maybe get that pitch in and that, like,
No,
you know,
no,
like, but
I think that all the department heads should know that there is a capital planning process and that we meet at a particular time of the year and we're fairly consistent and like Sam says, I think that
yeah,
it should be prompt, it should be prompt. I'm not discounting the back and forth that she has to do with the vendors, but it's helpful to us, really.
I think we're just lucky that things got cut, because we were at our budget, we were squeezing, so, it worked out, and we understand that there's delays out of anyone's control when you're trying to get a quote for anything, so, Shane, how do you feel about the van?
No, I'm fine with the van as well.
Okay, Dan?
Yep.
Okay, I'm a yes too, I think it's a definite need for them, so I think we keep that in there. And then, let's talk the Maple Way, Steve, you know, and Joe gave us a little bit more information, what do we think about, or actually, hold on, now, what do we have for a difference before we get into that,
75,000.
What was your original goal, Phil?
2,153, 2,153,000. What's that, Steve? 3 million? Steve saying.
I know, you know
So
what?
gracious on the way out.
Joe's putting 21 million in the corner there.
Trying to.
Come on.
I saw that.
Yeah, so gracious.
I will point out, and I think the capital planning should do what they think, but I will point out that the finance committee, in reviewing all the budgets, is looking at is projecting a deficit for next year. So who knows what's going to happen in the future with them. But I think this committee needs to do what it thinks it needs to do.
Understood.
Well, in that case, we should really just get our dollars worth now.
True, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so water, yeah, so the other things we cut last meeting were the bottle fillers, you know, Galvin was looking for 20, we put in 7,500, and the senior center, I believe,
They wanted 30.
they wanted, and we gave them a similar amount. So do we want to raise any of those? Are there any other yellow? I'm trying to look at the list we had of any yellows we, you know, maybe begrudgingly cut because we needed to, that we would have the ability to, is there anything on this list for anyone that's sticking out in your mind of that we cut that you'd like to reintroduce back into the discussion?
The only thing I was gonna mention, and I wasn't, here last time, but it's over 75. I was gonna mention the Dole Bear playground. I know that but that's 125, so.
Doe Bear, and then it was incomplete, and then it might have a walkway that might need to get done too. So I think if that could come back next year, that could be, we've been trying to do one playground a year. The Walton sort of would be our playground this year, and this Doe Bear second playground, if there's some extra work involved to make it truly, if that came in next year, we could finish that off. There was some hope to just get it done and be done with the playgrounds, but it was a big enough ask that we picked Walton, and then decided it would be great if maybe Dolbear could come back to us next year. And why didn't we approve the rockery? Is that gonna be a grant, are you just gonna find money for that, Joe, in your pocket, or where, can you remind me, well, with the rock?
No, I, that's on the radar of, myself, our group here. I know WCNA is looking at it. And like I said, that's one down the road that's a real, should there be the availability to get an earmark for it? That's a great one because it takes a nice picture when it's done for everybody to stand out in front of. So we can work with it for now.
Yeah, that's a great earmark one. Next year, someone put it in. They'll love that one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. With the flowers and everything popping and the photo apps.
Okay, so with nothing else kind of new, what do we think about the Maple Way? What are we coming up? So we're at a what for a difference here?
If
With
you,
Maple Way, it's
So just on the side really quick, this is your goal. Here's where you're at. So it gives you 78,000 in space. If you were to add the fences as Steve described, you'd be 28,000 under your goal and in real good shape.
Joe, do you know how much the batting cages would be?
It probably about 10, about 8,500 bucks, give or take. You know, if they ask for a little bit higher of a fence, it'll be slightly more behind the catcher, but our confidence is fairly high that $50,000 will do all the fencing, at least on the front field that they're looking to try to accomplish.
That'd be the perimeter fence they're
It has
talking
to
about.
be.
Yeah. I think it's the perimeter fence of field one that's not the fence in the outfield, because,
that's
yeah.
already there.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, does it sound right that this is? Yeah, because again, the one in the outfield, that is rather new. If it's the perimeter fence, that would make more sense regarding the first field, the bigger field. I don't know where they're gonna put this batting cage, but I'm sure they'll find space somewhere.
So this is a spot that they walked it the other day because, like I said, we had to measure out the backfield to see if we could even get that thing to fit. And you know, just wheeling it off wasn't gonna do it. But there's room depending along wood line. It could go there. There's also the potential of it going somewhere in between first base and the backstop to the side there. I would imagine it'd probably go over more towards the tree line though, just so spectators can sit kind of closer to the other side. But Dennis from my group needs to mow around it and maintain it. So he's going to have an opinion and, you know, work with those that need to use it to scope it to the best spot. But if I had to put a bet on it right now, it would go over towards the woods a little bit more. So it'd be over by third base, somewhere over there.
What do people think?
I don't think we have to feel the need to hit the exact number. If we come in, what, $8,000 short, that's not gonna hurt anything. So I guess that's a long way of saying that 50,000 for the fences should be enough. If that's the number that will do the job.
I'd rather spend the 50,000 on some other request. There's nothing about the Maple Way project that has swayed me as to that it all still keeps sounding like, well, we're looking at doing this, that, or the other thing. And it just like, it feels more like a pile of money to do something, but there's no plan like really laid out or explained to me that I want to put the money into it when there are other potential requests that we could be filling. So if we upped all the water fillers, then we still have 43 left, and that we could put that into something else, doing the carpets at the library, doing some other more specific asks that had a proposal to it or a clearer purpose, as opposed to this still, like, we're not even sure if we're talking about an outfield fence or a perimeter fence or redoing the backstop. Like, I don't know what the request is. So I think that's my problem.
Well, Sam,
With the
somebody
Maple Way.
expressed somebody expressed a need, whoever it was that put this line item in, expressed a need for work to be done on that field. They asked for 100,000. We heard at the last meeting that 100,000 is a rather soft number. And Joe has just said that the fence that we're contemplating is about $50,000.
Yeah, but I just, but
And
what,
then there
what
was a need
fence?
for it.
Because we talked about an outfield fence and that doesn't seem to be the actual correct. We're all thinking outfield fence, but that doesn't make sense because the outfield fence should be fine. Like, that's my issue. And yeah, the 100,000 was maybe like a seed thing to get started on doing a larger project. But if there's a larger project to be had with regrading a bunch of field work, putting in new equipment, doing bleachers, improving things, like that should then be a larger project that then is probably like a warrant article. Like, we need to give Maple Way a complete uplift.
Yeah.
If field 1 needs to be regraded and field 2 barely exists because it needs to be completely redone in terms of the grade and the soil work and everything else, like I just don't know what we're doing, putting a little bit of money at it, I think is.
Well, what we're doing is deferring that amount of money in the future, in whatever future project develops. So we're not deferring it. We are removing that amount of money from whatever the future project is.
Yeah, but I would rather have a better sense of the vision than just do a little something and then come back with something more and we'll give you a little bit more. Then we can do the big thing. Like,
Yeah, I can see Sam's point. I know the one thing that is very defined is the batting cages. So I'd say I'm okay with the batting cages. Right, so what was that, 10 grand? I'm happy to give them 10,000 towards batting cages. I do know they've been asking for that for a while. So I could do that. But I see your point. We don't specifically know what this fencing is.
Right,
Outfield
like,
fence,
if-
there is fine.
I would rather have more constraints or description as to what we would be giving money for.
Steve
But-
Mayo listed off some priorities that were expressed to him by the softball group.
Well, it was in the backup that they sent, that it was in one of their slides too, about their top needs, yeah.
Could you repeat?
You want me to read those again? Sure.
Just repeat those, please.
Yeah, the top needs: a pitching/hitting tunnel, new fence at M1, which is the bigger field, and begin exploration of the overhaul of M2. So those are the 3 top needs on their presentation.
I will say, it sounds like if we do a new fence, a batting cage, the work down the road doesn't affect that. I think if we did this, it improves Maple Way immediately. And then, if they do more of an overhaul for M2, they pull back the tree line and things like that. It's not like, wasting money. So, I mean, a softball field to me, something like this, out of everything, makes sense to do incrementally.
I agree with that.
Excuse me, this is Tracy. I hate to keep going back, and I know that it's been for me to go back to our last meeting where I said that the other sports may come to us and ask for that. And when Bond put their offices on the baseball field, they took away the batting cage. So what's to say that they're not going to come to us for a batting cage next year?
I think the batting cage is being relocated.
Well, I'm sure it was, but to another bad spot. My point is that does that mean they're never gonna come back to us for something like this as well? So is it gonna come to us for every sport going forward? Or something, because there's always something.
What is the relationship between Bond and the batting cage? And
When Bond put their the offices on the on the outfield at Wakefield High.
Yeah.
For Wakefield High, they got rid of there was a
Cage.
the batting cage on there, so they took it away and they relocated it.
Yeah, it's gonna be permanently relocated too. Just for reference, it's gonna be closer to the use than it was.
And maybe that's gonna be paid for by the athletic director out of his budget.
I think that'll be part of the project.
Part of the project.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
interesting. All right.
yeah, you don't have to worry about that guy.
So, if I may, just for perspective, in 2022, this committee voted to fund $100,000 to rebuild the Moulton, Sullivan, and Nacella infields, and ball diamonds.
Mm,
And we also did some fence work at Sullivan. And I was just on the phone with Dennis. I apologize for stepping out for a second. But $50,000 will cover you the outfield fence, which is a wire fence now, that he constantly has to go back to Mickey Mouse back together to get it to stand up, and a batting cage. So that's exactly what that will fund.
I forgot that we paid for those fields.
Yeah,
3 years
I
ago.
just went back because I knew we were doing something.
What fiscal year was that?
22.
Yeah, so it was for fiscal 23. So the vote was on 4/4/2022.
Mhm. Yeah, like field renovate, again, we're, you
That
know,
was this one right here.
field is different than buying equipment, and I think that's where I differ. Like, if we were rebuilding field 2 at the Maple Way and we had the money, I'd say, yeah, like, that's something we, as a town-wide benefit. It's the equipment that keeps on getting me, because again, I know for a fact the soccer association pays for nets. And a soccer net is equivalent to a batting cage, I'd say. So I fear that if we start buying equipment for one sport, there's going to be disparity amongst others, and then what happens next year. And so that was, that I just think that's
Yeah,
a
so
concern,
Phil,
but
so if we drop the batting cage, that still leaves the fence, which is not equipped. It's,
yeah, like a fence I see as infrastructure in the field would be something more related to town,
right,
but
I guess I
I
kind
don't
of
know.
go back to Sam, though, too. So which fence is it? Is it
It's right in the outfield.
The
It goes,
outfield.
fence though in the outfield?
yeah, I think that's,
That chain link fence is pretty new in the outfield.
It may look new,
It's
but
not new.
yeah,
Not
it's
now.
and in
Band-Aid
the
and bubble
beginning, they
gum.
used to take it down every winter, and then it just remained up after a couple of years. So it's been standing for years. Well, trying to stand for years.
Okay, all right, so we're replacing the fence that's currently there.
and Steve, I know you're the conduit, but most of the other asks, are coming from a department that they can come in.
Correct.
And I know you were
Yep.
just acting as the conduit on
Yep.
this.
Yeah, they sought me out.
Okay, where were we at? 78,000. Any suggestions from anyone?
is that in or out? With the 78,000?
We have about 78 to hit our goal.
I guess so I'll just say it too. I guess the question is, do we do the 50,000 on the fence or not, right? I think that's probably where we're at. And not to do a pun, but I'm kind of on the fence, I guess.
You're on the fence.
Well, my question about the fence then is going to be, Joe, when Dennis goes in, is he going to regrade the field first and get all that done and then put the fence in, or is just going to do a fence replacement? I mean, they clean up the field every year, obviously, on the clay and bases, but with the water that they're talking about in the puddles, which I live 10 houses away, so I do see it. Are they going to grade the field in a certain way and then put the fence in?
So the fence only being in the outfield wouldn't really involve any grading out
It wouldn't.
there. What they would do when we're working in there installing the batting cage is grade the sections where the benches are, so that those don't become, bird baths. Get the water out of those. And then as far as regrading the field, they could do the best that they can within our operating budget, but if we wanted to strip that and completely redo it and laser grade it, that would have to be its own separate line. You're probably talking now like
Way too much, yeah,
65, 70,000 to do that.
right.
So interestingly enough, I can see that more than I could the fences. And I don't know, if it's 65 and we have 78, we could regrade it all. I can say that's definitely a need. The water is absolutely an issue there. Not to muddy the water.
You're on the fence about muddying the water. All of it changed. Yeah. Any other discussion on it, or?
I think my last comment is if the option is either to do the fence in the batting cage or to roll over 78K, I think my preference would be to do the fence in the batting cage. I just think it provides an upgrade to, the field that gets used quite a bit, so. But if there's something else we were thinking of doing, or if we want to roll it over.
It doesn't really get rolled over anywhere.
Yeah.
You
So
gotta
use it or lose it.
Yeah.
Do I have this correctly? Is the water issue not as serious as the fence and the bleacher and the need for a batting cage? It seems to me that the flooding there and the retention of the water after a storm seems to be a big problem.
It's not one of the top needs that they listed, but it's an obvious need that people are aware of. I'm gonna find it doubtful you're gonna regrade that whole field for 65,000. I don't know where you're gonna put it all, but I guess if it's all in-house work, it's different for cost, so.
Well, I mean, don't take that quote to the bank either. So I'm just figuring, the Blatts field was around 50 to do that part of that scope. That was a few years ago, so it's inflated a little bit, I don't have a number for that. I'm just shooting from the hip.
We don't even know where the grade is. Like, there's a lot of work to decide how you're regrading something before you actually get in there and regrade it.
Could I suggest an up or down vote here?
Yeah, so is the proposal to put in 50,000 for fencing and batting cages? So you want to make a motion?
I would move that we put in the 50,000 for the fences, exclude the batting cages,
Just for fencing?
just for fencing.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, roll call. Sam?
No.
Frank?
Present.
No, yes or no?
We don't know.
Garrett?
Yes.
Shane?
I'm gonna go yes.
Dan?
Yes,
Tracy?
Yes,
Okay. I'm a no. So 4-3, 50 grand will stay in for fencing on the Maple Way. And 28, if we want to finish off the, wait, where are you? We're not negative 21, are we?
No, I don't know why that did that.
No, it's what, 28. I was gonna bring up the repointing of the town hall. My concern with not maintaining that is water's gonna start getting in the foundation of that old building. So, but if you think you could fit that into an operating budget and get it done, I'm inclined to not recommend it. But if this is money that would be put to good use for the maintenance of town hall, I think that would be I'd like to see that back in. But Joe, do you remember, it was only 10 grand, so it wasn't a huge ask, which could have been one of the reasons we removed it.
No, we could throw it back in. It would certainly help. That's for sure.
What do people think about that? My issue with masonry buildings is if you start letting water and ice in, it
Agreed.
starts exponentially just blowing them up from inside. So I think maintaining them is a good thing. It is our town hall.
We're talking about a foundation repointing.
Yeah,
Sorry, I was yelling at my dog if anybody heard that.
No?
Come on.
would people be okay in putting the 10 back in there? Or not? Or
So
we
my-
28, we could send, we haven't adjusted I'm sorry, we haven't adjusted
what
the
do we
bottle
do?
fillers with that total. So before I even go there, what about giving more money back to the bottle fillers?
I'd rather do the foundation.
I agree. I'd say I'd put it more towards the foundation.
We might have some more that we could make, yeah, do both, maybe put more foundation and maybe put the rest
You
of
do
the
the
pillars.
foundation,
Yeah, I like.
that's, you still have 18,000 to go.
And then we could do 9 on each for the water fillers.
And give 16.5 to the 2 water filler requests.
Yeah.
Okay, Joe, so 10 on the foundation.
Yep.
And then 16.5 on the 2, on the senior center and Galvin.
And there's the $34 difference.
So this number is going to 16.5, you're essentially doubling it.
16.5, Joe, yep.
Coming in under budget, Sam, right? That's, you know. And then I think it's the Galvin. Our magic number is there. Look at that.
What is it?
It's about as good as you can get.
Under budget,
$34
Steve.
That's it.
Oh, by the way, the fire truck will be a warrant article.
Yes, we
All
were.
right.
Figured
Well, you
that
know
out.
that.
That's good.
Count on it.
Good for the town, that's. good.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Lori, Joe, Steve, anyone online, any discussion or questions? I'm good.
No, Phil, thanks for having us.
Okay, thanks for coming.
Yeah, I'm good, Phil.
Okay, so if we're ready, if someone can make a motion, we have to make 3 motions tonight. We have to approve the main budget, and then we have to do both divisions as separate motions too, the water and then the sewer. So,
Phil, before you do that.
Yes.
I need to know, can I vote? I can't vote on this.
I think you can. So, Steve, I got a question you may know. Dan serves as a library trustee,
Yes.
and since there's a library request within the list, is this something that he can vote on as a member of capital planning, or should he recuse himself from voting on this?
You know what, not, not having checked on that, the prudent option would be to recuse.
Recuse, okay.
Sorry, Dan.
There's a quorum without me.
There is,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So someone want to make a motion for the,
I will make a motion to approve $2,152,966. Second.
okay? Sam,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Garrett,
Yes.
Shane,
Yes.
Dan, Dan's recusing, Tracy?
Yes,
I'm a yes. Okay, next one is sewer. Someone want to make a motion for that one?
I move to approve $358,000 for the sewer division as seen on the screen.
I'll second. I'll second.
And Gloria with the second. Okay, Sam,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Garrett,
Yes.
Shane,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Tracy?
yes.
Yes. Okay, and that leaves the water division. Someone want to make a motion? Whoever's it.
I'll do it. So I propose what we see on the screen for the water division to approve $307,000.
Second,
Okay, Sam,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Garrett,
Yes.
Shane,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Tracy,
yes.
and I'm a yes. Look at that, folks.
Okay.
Good job. Okay, that's it. We have no more meetings. Steve will work on a presentation and get that over for the town council. I know I have to present next Monday. And then
Yes.
FinCom is next Thursday.
Correct.
So, Bill, I already started that this afternoon before I left. I'll have it done. I'll send it to you by the morning. I'll include you on it, Steve. Basically the same thing as always. I cherry picked a few pieces from this, and then I'll clean this sheet up. So I'll get rid of everything that got nixed. And then one thing that will happen, just the years of these vehicles will be updated. They won't say 2008 anymore. They'll say 2025. That's the
Yeah,
only thing that'll move.
Send me the PowerPoint before you send for printing or anyone else. Let me take a look at it before. I don't want Steve to send that to someone for the agenda and have it changed. So let me look at it real quick, or you can send me what you have and I don't mind finishing it either. So.
So,
No worries.
Joe,
so all of us will get a copy of the spreadsheet.
yes, I'll forward that. I'll forward this
Thank
final
you.
sheet along to everyone as well.
And Phil, I'll be introducing you to the town council and the finance committee, so send me the PowerPoint as well.
Yes, sir. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn.
Bill, thank you to you and the committee. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you so much.
Everyone, just great work always.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Do our best.
I don't know about you, Phil, but I'm talking about.
I don't.
I'm not ever gonna talk about you, Phil.
I learned a long time ago to surround myself with better people, and that it makes yourself look better. So
That's what I do on our committee, Phil.
that's where I am in this committee. So I thank everyone. It's a tough one. So we have a motion to adjourn from someone.
I move we adjourn.
And second. We're all adjourned. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, guys.